Hello, everyone, and welcome back into Crypto's News. I'm so excited to be back with you guys. Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. So thanks so much for the patience, guys, again, while we get back to letting you know what is happening in cryptocurrency and keeping you informed with what the most important topics of the day that you need to know about are. I've been a little bit under the weather, but I'm feeling like 95% better, luckily super quickly. So thanks again for holding out there. And it's really good to be back. We're going to be covering what's going on today with Voyager. We're going to be talking a little bit about FTX, what's going on there, of course, with Sam Bankman-Fried. We're going to be covering some other news, so sit back, grab yourself a beverage if you can, and a nice comfortable seat. That's always nice for your beautiful butts. Keep them looking beautiful. You're going to be sitting on them, hopefully, for a long time, and you want them to be well taken care of. Anyway, I want them to be taken care of. That's the case. Yeah, just being a little bit silly here, of course, as we like to do. But we're going to go ahead and start off by talking about, I think, what's quite important here, which is why we're all here in the first place. It's so easy to forget when we have companies that are going under, Bitcoin was not founded around this idea of even a crypto company. It was expected and suspected that there would be different companies that might evolve around Bitcoin, blockchains, ideas, different service providers over time and evolve in that direction. That's in fact what's happened. You have so many different services and companies that now operate for it. But at the end of the day, we're really here for the protocol. We're here about the ability to have sovereign money that cannot be censored. It's about having a currency that cannot be issued into infinity to allow you to preserve your value by having a hard-coded limit, mathematically hard-coded limit to how much can be produced or issued over time, with maybe even a hard limit like you're seeing with Bitcoin, of course, and seeing that verifiable. You have the Byzantine generals problem being solved, allowing people to agree on the state of the ledger and coordinate together in order to run this ledger, which is still, in my opinion, just so futuristic and cool. Something that's going to be here for us likely much longer than any fiat currency that currently exists. And so I think it's very important to remember that this is the very reason that cryptocurrency exists, and that it's driven so many people to work around it was around this original philosophical idea. Many of these original philosophies anyways, around having a good hard money. And that continues to be the case. It'll continue to be what people bring up once we wash away some of the madness, some of the craziness that happens during bull markets, where it's like things just get distorted in all sorts of directions and people really forget why this started in the first place and drove any sort of attention. If we had just talked about tokens going to infinity out of nowhere, then yeah, we would have looked like crazy people, and none of this likely would have gotten anywhere or looked any different than what we saw with stocks. But it's too often that as we get into some of the mania, people start to correlate the two like they're the exact same thing. Like buying AMC and Bath and Body Works is the exact same thing as buying Bitcoin, when really it's not. At least it shouldn't be if you understand the value of what it is that you're holding. And I think a lot of what's going on here is trying to figure out, of course, what that value really is and what will ultimately be where we more settle around in price. And that's why you have this craziness of the upside. You have the price soar over $20,000, $60,000, and then crash back down all the way below $20,000, last cycle's high, and just seeming like it's very unpredictable and almost impossible to figure out the price. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. Now, I don't think we figured out the real value here, because some of that original value came from, well, what if fiat currencies fail next year, right? And it's taken a little bit longer than I guess any sort of early predictions anyway as to when this would all fall apart, as we've seen just how resilient actually some of these regular fiat currencies are, as people, just like people continue to use Facebook knowing it might not be the best for their privacy and others' privacy as well. Like if you don't have a Facebook account, it doesn't matter. Facebook knows so much about you because of what your friends post or what your friends have on their phones about you, right? It's the same kind of thing. People trust fiat currencies, and it's not likely that they're going to go away very easily. And it will take some sort of catastrophic failure for people to move towards something else. I would say the biggest risk, of course, is totalitarian-like, fascist-like controls to stop you from having the ability to get something else other than fiat currencies in the event that they do go down, before they proffer up some sort of solution, like some sort of new central bank digital currency that would allow for instantaneous manipulation of interest rates, allow for your funds to be locked at will, and anyone else's funds, which right now it's not as easy to do, but it would be very different in that kind of world. And it would be one where governments know exactly how you spend your money, where you spend your political money as well, and things could be done against you just based on how you vote by spending your money. And that is something that I think is not appreciated enough, as something that's really, really terrible for humanity overall. And so you currently still have the option to opt out by holding these different cryptocurrencies. Previously, it was very easy to just buy these cryptocurrencies. I'm sorry, not buy these cryptocurrencies, but instead mine them or earn them different ways, right? Like early on in Bitcoin, there were even websites that gave you Bitcoin for free just for showing up. They were called faucets, and they would just drip, drip, drip Bitcoin, and that was a way to accrue them. People oftentimes earned them as well. It's not as easy now, but they earned them many different ways, right? They earned them even on darknet sites. That's what's most often looked at as the way that Bitcoin is earned, right? Is for drugs and the illicit market and everything else. But that's one way to do it, right? You could sell your book, you could sell something for fiat currencies. But right now there is a war with regulations to make it more difficult to transact in cryptocurrencies under the guise of protections, making it more difficult for employers to pay you, make it more difficult for you to send it without reporting to someone. This is kind of at odds with, again, this idea of not being put on lists for how you're spending your money, and so on. Anyway, as you can see, you have the national debt and so many different debts climbing and climbing. And if the federal government doesn't pay some of these debts, well, guess what? Their reputation, which is valued in bonds, really goes down. It's saying that the government cannot pay those bonds, those debts that are owed. And if they do not do that, they do not continue to service the debt, that means nobody would buy those bonds. So they continue to do so. They'll print money to do so by any means necessary, with the help of central banks. And that means that more and more money has to continually be issued. So despite hearing that the Fed might eventually reverse course on interest rates this, interest rates that, inflation rate is this, really when you're talking about inflation slowing down or being flat, it doesn't matter. But what they're talking about, slowing down inflation, is still going to be inflating. They're just talking about the rate of inflation, right? Moving it from 8% back down to 2%. That's still inflating the money supply. If you're still inflating the money supply that's grown just ugly amounts, right, during this COVID era. I'm not sure what the exact number is right now, but something like 40% of all the dollars ever in existence have been printed. Last I had looked at it, which is probably honestly over a year and a half ago. And it's more than that right now, I'm sure. We're talking about inflating that money supply 2% and so on. Then it's 2%, it's cumulative and so on. It compounds on each other. And that just means the world becomes more awash. It means that more people have to be chasing more dollars in order to just keep the same quality of life. And we had a really nice time, right, where technology was able to make it so more and more people could enjoy a higher quality of life through I remember when text messages started to blow up, right? And we had to pay, I didn't pay, but my poor mother paid like 10 cents per text back when I was in high school. I was probably 14 years old when I got my first cell phone. 10 cents per message. And that was when I was just flowering the youth of my life and falling in love with ladies and having to, I remember, trying to flirt over texts became very, very expensive back then. But it allowed me the ability to form relationships, right, without having to meet this person in person constantly. And that was just like one advantage in my life that was really cool. Luckily, text messages do not cost that much right now, but some of those bills were quite scary. I tried to tone it down, trust me, once I realized what was going on there. But there were not really unlimited plans that I had heard of back then. Anyway, our lives have become better, but that seems to be slowing down somewhat. If anything, it might be that people will be taking more of a hit because of technology at this point, because of the proliferance of AI, right? Taking jobs from artists, or eventually self-driving trucks and cars, which might take away the hundreds of thousands of jobs that could be available to those kinds of drivers. And so this is a new kind of battle. And yeah, it's happened the case where maybe we'll find other kinds of jobs coordinating, but it's still the case where you had somebody back in the day who was doing the job. What's up, everyone? Just riffing here while we wait for everyone to stroll in, trying to remind us of what's important here. But thank you all for joining me. What's up, McDuffie, Renee, number of things, yo. And so you had back in the day many people separated into different kinds of jobs, right? You had somebody who was the typist and the data entry person, right? Or you had somebody who did, I don't know, some other kind of word processing, somebody who managed the database, somebody who did some sort of spreadsheet-like work. But now you have oftentimes one person who's doing all of these jobs at the same time. And it will likely be the same kind of case with AI, where, yeah, you're going to have new kinds of jobs, but a lot of those previous jobs can now be done by AI, right? Or a team of AI, and you have one person who's overseeing that or giving some sort of the creative input to allow the AI to do its job or whatever. So point being, it is a new era. We don't know exactly how it's going to play out. There's optimistic reasons to be here, but at the end of the day, it is a rapidly changing world that we're all really trying to wrap our heads around, and it's moving faster than any one person or entity or company or even government can try to figure out. So it's important to try to hedge yourselves when it comes to skills, of course, in many different directions. When it comes to currencies, I think it's the same thing. Try to hedge yourself in different directions. And one of the easiest ways to do that, of course, is with cryptocurrencies, because you can get exposure to different Forex markets. You can get exposure to synthetic stocks now. You can do so much, right? It was beautiful when it was Bitcoin alone. I think it was. And there still continues to be a really nice beauty in imagining, at least, that everyone would flock into Bitcoin. This is a lot of the Bitcoin utopian ideals, is that it's nice to have one focus, right? If we're going to be fleeing from fiat currencies eventually, we all flood into the one thing that gives it the highest chance of succeeding. And if it's Bitcoin, why not Bitcoin? I agree. If we had to choose one, why not? Why wouldn't it be Bitcoin that we choose as the money? But it was a fantastic evolution that we did get Ethereum there as a real big financial derivative of Bitcoin, where, yeah, you could wrap Bitcoin, put it on Ethereum, and do so much more with it with decentralized finance. You could do what you could do with Bitcoin plus more. And yeah, many of these tools exist for Bitcoin, but they're slower. They might have higher fees. They might be a little bit more centralized. It's not native as smart contracts would be to Ethereum, and so on. And it just has not been as widely adopted, a lot of this technology, as it is on Ethereum. So my point is, it's nice that you do have something like Ethereum right alongside Bitcoin, and that giving it even more capability as we really build out a brand new financial infrastructure. And I think that's actually really good for Bitcoin. It allows you to do more with Bitcoin while still demanding the same utility from Bitcoin. If you believe it's a store of value and the best store of value, it's not like that's being taken away. So my point being here, I think that when it comes to why we are here, it's important to wash away a lot of the speculation, a lot of the froth that goes on, and really remind ourselves during these times in the bear market what is important, each other, what is important, and how what we're still doing here, why it's still relevant, and why it's important to continue to follow it, discuss it, share it with folks, because we still have not come to a head when it comes to this inflation, as you're hearing about credit card usage, consumption being at huge highs. You're hearing about real estate beginning to impact people because the prices are not going up as they were promised. If anything, they're flat or falling now, we're hearing about. That means the reverse wealth effect, people feeling poorer. That might mean that they might have less to invest in cryptocurrencies in the short term, but it also means that if you're here earlier on, you're probably going to be the beneficiary of what eventually will or could be a huge flood into this. And therefore, you'll benefit. I don't think we've seen the true benefits, right, of cryptocurrencies being here as a true lifeboat against fiat currencies. I think that fight or that moment really is still to come here. But there have been winners along the way. If you have just been along for the ride, you've been rewarded oftentimes throughout the years for just having held on earlier on and adopted it before others. When everybody else is forgetting about this, when everybody else is shitting on it and saying it's dead, that's usually a good time to begin buying in and holding on for the ride. And you might, if not at least survive in the longer term, thrive during some of these cycles while we get to that point, even if the dollar does not collapse right away. I don't know, just thinking out loud here. But let's go ahead and look at this. As I had put in the title, it could be that the Bitcoin top is a little bit of a ways away. So I'm not going to go ahead and say we're going to be seeing a huge bubble tomorrow. And I'm not promising you're going to be a millionaire thanks to buying Bitcoin. Although it could be the case if you buy one Bitcoin and you hold on to the next cycle that you'll be a millionaire. And the reason for that, if you look at this little blip right back here in December 2013, that's the top of that bull market in 2013. Then guess what? You go over 4 years, you go over here to December 2017, the top of this of the 2017 bull market. That was 4 years apart. And then you go another 4 years, and guess what? We get right here to November 2021 that we just passed here, and that was likely the peak of this last cycle. I mean, it was the peak of this last cycle. So basically 4 years apart in these cycles when we're hitting these huge new all-time highs. So it could be the case indeed again, and maybe it's because of the math, again, the halvening. I'm not entirely sure why this plays out, some sort of psychological reason. Your guess is as good as mine. But it could be the case that it could be another 4 years after November or December 2021 that we see the peak of the next bull market. Does that mean that you want to just forget about this and not buy until, I don't know, October 2025? Probably not, because a lot of the gains are made along the way, right? It's not just at the peak, and it's unlikely you're going to be able to sell the peak anyway. So generally it's better to buy near the bottom, which is about halfway between. There could be a good point to be buying there between the bull market. So it's pretty soon, and it could be around the Bitcoin bull market, we will begin the Bitcoin, halvening. We could begin climbing again as we reach a new high, and you'll be missing out so many gains if you wait until 2024, 2025 to begin buying again. And time does fly. It's better to dollar cost average in, although again, I don't think we're going to be moving straight to the top either. It takes time just from a psychological perspective for people to deal with a lot of what's going on, the pain that they still feel inside, the money that they feel that they've lost, especially if they've realized those losses, they have completely cashed out and they're just not interested in it. Or I guess some of them will learn the hard lesson if they primarily bought shit coins and that's what they're holding on to and not something of real value against something that it will hold price over the longer term for more fundamental reasons, I would say. Some of those people could probably be burned out for a while and still not learn from their mistakes or buy the right tokens for the next time. But many of you guys who are still here, I think, do understand what's at play here. And feel free to let me know. I did mention Bitcoin and Ethereum here. There are definitely some other names out there that are going to be some good fundamental plays that will have a reason to be here for the longer term. And hopefully they're decentralized and can survive some systemic problems. So if you have some of those in mind, let me know down below what you think it will be, and I'll be happy to hear that. But let's go ahead and get into things. Any thoughts you guys have, always appreciate in the comments. We're going to get into some of the news as to what's happening. Voyager. So Voyager has announced agreement for Binance.us to acquire its assets. Previously, Binance had put in a bid to buy Voyager. Voyager had gone down very much like Celsius, and it shut down all services. And they, for example, they were the first ones to file for bankruptcy. They've been kind of a leader here with what's going on with bankruptcy. And Binance had put in a bid to purchase some of the assets that were left over during bankruptcy proceedings, Chapter 11, but they lost to FTX. It looks like Binance is going to be getting another shot now that FTX obviously is not going to be able to go forward with that deal. The bid was for approximately $1.022 billion that Binance US put forward here. So the US branch, which is headquartered in Palo Alto, California is going to be buying up the assets. It's really that the cryptocurrencies that Voyager holds are currently worth $1.002 billion, but Binance is going to be putting an extra $20 million of incremental value. They're going to be putting in like a $10 million good faith deposit in the short term, but this deal is not expected to close before April 18th, 2023, subject to a 1-month extension. I think this is good. I'm glad to see that Voyager has continued to try to get funds back to customers as soon as possible. We've seen Celsius, for example, delay and delay. I had read yesterday that the attorneys of Celsius were charging for the last 4 months worth of work about 50 million US dollars. And that's probably coming out of customers' funds. Whereas instead you have Voyager trying to set what the customer funds are and get that back out to them as soon as possible rather than wasting people's money. And back when Voyager had to deal with FTX, you might remember that it was expected customers would be receiving about 72 cents on the dollar. I don't think much has changed in regard to that, but I will continue to update you as I find that out. Oh my dear, we have a really bad echo. Oh no. Is anybody else having an echo? I will look into that, but I'm not entirely sure why there would be an echo at this time. I can, if there is an echo, I can figure that out for the next time, I suppose. Or if it's too bad, I can pause the stream and look into that right now. Let me know, guys. But yeah, actually, I don't have too much. No echo, Renee. Okay, cool. Thanks, Renee. I appreciate it. I'm not sure why you're seeing that echo, but if you are, oh, that's your name. My bad. Maybe that was my confusion there. Your name is Echo Echo. My bad. I'm still trying to get used to my new setup here, so silly me. Anyway, Voyager's token did pump quite a bit today. Let's see where it's at now. Let me refresh here on CoinGecko. Yeah, it's still up 24.5%. Does seem to be dropping off, but this was seen as good news for the Voyager token. This was interesting to me. So you have Senator Sherrod Brown, Democrat from Ohio. He's a chairman of the Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. He went on NBC's Meet the Press to talk to moderator Chuck Todd, according to The Hill here. And he said that maybe cryptocurrencies should be banned after the collapse of FTX last month. He said, I don't know, maybe we should ban it, although banning it is very difficult because it will go offshore and who knows how it will work. So this is a little bit ridiculous to me, honestly. He said we've got to do this right. I've spent much of the last whatever. Anyway, he doesn't seem to be the biggest fan of crypto. And I think it's important to point out the politicians who have not really done their homework and are trying to use situations like with FTX to make crypto overall look bad, to demoralize even decentralization, which FTX was not crypto, as you know. It was not decentralization. It was the exact opposite of what crypto is trying to stand for, which is transparency through ledgers that are publicly viewable, hard-coded things, right? This was one company that operated as a complete fraud. And he was the one who last week was the host because he is the chair of that committee. They were the ones who hosted a hearing on FTX where you probably heard Sam Bankman-Fried was supposed to show up for that hearing, but the day before he got arrested, coincidentally. But he is the chairman of that committee, and he had, during that hearing, said some not so great things about cryptocurrency, which I think is misleading to folks. Take a look.
I've noted in the past similarities that cryptocurrencies share with risky mortgage bonds and over-the-counter derivatives during the lead up to the financial crisis. In all these cases, they told us how great innovation is and how derivatives make markets efficient. Wall Street made it easy for everyone to get a mortgage so bankers could create more mortgage bonds and increase profits. Making money in crypto seems so easy, too easy. Every crypto token could double or triple in value in a matter of hours or days. It didn't matter if it was created with vague details or as a joke, money still poured in. No one's laughing now. the weekend before our stablecoin hearing last February, we saw crypto companies spending big money on Super Bowl ads to attract more customers and pump up crypto tokens. I appreciated the comments of one of you in this panel on public radio today about that.
Yeah. I mean, you get the point there. Again, trying to confuse crypto with companies in crypto that do not operate in the best light or for crypto overall, which again was about decentralization, having good money that has limits and so on. Yeah, there were joke coins that people poured money into, and that's the kind of thing again that happens during a bull market. That's not like crypto believers trying to hedge themselves and trying to have an alternative to the dollar. And this guy to me seems more like someone looking out for bankers more, right? He's part of the banking committee. So kind of a joke here. I would hope people don't take Mr. Sherrod Brown very seriously considering his comments here. Maybe he just needs more education, but if anything, it seems quite malicious to me. So just another one to see as a possibly not a beneficiary of crypto overall here, despite that hearing being about FTX. Let's take an opportunity to bash crypto. Not a really good look, man. I thought this was really interesting news. This is a little bit more mainstream. I don't cover too much about specific features that are coming to products these days in crypto, but I thought this was interesting. A lot of folks do use MetaMask as their primary wallet for things like Arbitrum or for Ethereum. And they have now partnered, Consensus, the company that owns MetaMask, has partnered with PayPal. They've announced in order to allow you to buy ETH directly through PayPal on your Web3 wallet, as they're calling there, through your Chrome extension. You just log into your mobile MetaMask app, you click on the buy button, select PayPal, enter the dollar amount of ETH you want to buy to your wallet. You buy your crypto through PayPal, and it ends up in your wallet directly there. This is being rolled out to more and more U.S. citizens. I don't think it's coming out for anyone around the world just yet, but I imagine if it goes well in the U.S. that they will be doing that to other places. And this is something that I think could help adoption as well. It means that people will be able to more easily log into different decentralized applications. If they don't have a certain amount of ETH in their wallet, they'll be more easily able to accrue that if they have a PayPal account. And I learned in LA that a lot of people do not have PayPal accounts. Venmo and Zelle seem to be the primary things that people are using. So maybe MetaMask wants to get on with Venmo and Zelle. I do want to, however, urge some sort of caution. If you are trying to buy your ETH through MetaMask, they charge substantial fees the last time that I had seen it. So you're better off going to some sort of cheaper exchange if you want to do that. It's nice to have the convenience to be able to buy that directly, but there are better options for you to be able to accrue your cryptocurrencies without as high fees. But MetaMask is a business, so I totally understand it. MetaMask had recently come under the spotlight through for a lot of heat, that is, because they were defaulting to Infura, and they continue to default to Infura as a default RPC node provider. So basically, whenever you send a transaction through MetaMask, by default, you have Infura nodes are processing that, and they collect user data, IP data, and that is, for whatever reasons, they are collecting that data. People did not like that. It goes at odds with crypto privacy and some of these ideals. So it's been brought to light. I mean, people were being reminded that you could change your default node on MetaMask. You can't change your default startup node. You have to do it like every single time. So it's kind of frustrating that MetaMask has made it somewhat difficult in order to change your default node and keep it that way. But maybe they'll do some sort of change for that as well. Totally understand that. If you don't want your data to be collected, you might want to change your default node on MetaMask if you didn't hear about that. So these are interesting signs for decentralization, says Shufflepuff. I'm hoping to see improvements in self-storage, making it easier for people. That would be easier. I think as storage becomes easier. I mean, it's become so much easier already with things like Ledger and having people. I think so many people already own these kinds of devices. It's just kind of annoying, right? I wish there was some sort of way to have like the privacy, have the ability to log in and have it know that it's you, right? But with less steps, with less friction, with less cables. I know there are like Bluetooth hardware wallets that exist as well, less button presses. For the average person, they might not have much time, right? They might need to get some transactions done, go to work, take care of their families. I think eventually when we have better interfaces, that it will become a better option for people. I'm not entirely sure what some sort of big adoption of that looks like, but I really don't feel like we're there just yet with the current state of hardware wallets. Maybe it will be something that we put in our bodies. I know many people are against that, but in the future is coming quick, and I think in 10 years, who knows, right? With Neuralink, what things will look like, something like that. Or something else. Maybe you have some sort of other idea, but I think self-storage is important, and the ability to interact while keeping possession of that crypto, like what you see with decentralized exchanges. I think that's the right track for folks, and seeing the evolutions that are going on with that is pretty incredible as well, for sure. I'm excited to see how that space develops. Shuffle puff. So Bankman-Fried wants to see indictment before agreeing to extradition. This follows a lot of this weekend news that was coming out that apparently Sam Bankman-Fried didn't like Bahamas jail. He was being put, I guess, with other inmates. I hear he was like with 5 other inmates, and it wasn't that bad. But anyway, he might not like it there, and he wants to seek extradition to the U.S. I mean, and he would not be, he's not going to be opposed to being extradited to the U.S. as much as we might have believed originally, and he was willing to come out. Now it looks like that may have changed as he went to court today. He was blindsided. He blindsided his attorney, Jerome Roberts, who said he called today's morning's proceedings shocking and premature when Sam Bankman-Fried did show up to court when he was not supposed to, or something like that. Whatever. It looks like extradition trial is still set for February 8th, 2023, and he's going to be trying for another bail on a hearing on January 17th, 2023. He was previously denied bail, but he's going to be trying to get that again. We had heard how he was trying to get a $250,000 bail, but he was seen as a huge flight risk, someone who had considerable financial assets, right? Who knows how much money he has hidden away and tucked away somewhere else. He even had like a dead man switch at FTX, right? Like if the company goes under, you can suddenly start moving funds around to the Bahamas and whatnot. Who knows how much money he might have embezzled away to other places and hid away in order to flee and hide somewhere else. So that was denied previously, and it might be denied again, but we're not entirely sure yet about that. Anyway, he wants to see what it looks like. The indictment, apparently he hasn't seen it before he agrees to being indicted to the United States or extradited to the United States and moved over there. Cointelegraph wrote on Twitter, it's unclear why the former FTX CEO may not fight extradition. If found guilty of all charges, reports suggest he could be facing a 115-year sentence. He was returned to the Bahamas Department of Corrections custody following the hearing, where he was expected to remain until February 8th. So yeah, looking at the charges, others are noting that he could be serving up to 115 years in prison for that. So he definitely wants to look in the indictment. I'm surprised he hasn't, or his lawyers haven't, or this is just some sort of media clickbaity kind of thing, is more likely what it looks like to me. I don't know. But it's unlikely he'll actually be serving 115 years. They really hand out those kinds of sentences to people who are nonviolent and really don't try to hurt many other people, like Ross Ulbricht's. They reserve those kinds of sentences for those kinds of individuals, the actual harmful crypto individuals. I'm being facetious, and I'm joking, of course. Anyway, I thought this was an interesting tweet here also by the Bitcoin conference, looking at Bitcoin and why it's still kind of beautiful in a way. It is, I was someone who kind of bashed a lot or trolled around a lot in the Bitcoin circles around Bitcoin increasing the block sizes to allow more people to transact, right? Considering storage space continues to get cheaper and has continued to get cheaper, I thought, why not conservatively increase the block size so more people could transact? Back around 2016, 2017, 2015, I was involved with that debate. that side lost and basically the block size stayed the same. I know it grew somewhat with SegWit. But anyway, it is the case that if you wanted to go ahead and fit all those transactions that have ever happened on the Bitcoin network in 13 plus years, you could do that, as it says here, on a $50 hard drive, because the total blockchain size is 504 gigabytes, which is quite small. And it is, I think, a problem when you see some blockchains that have began to balloon and balloon and balloon. And unfortunately, storage costs haven't gotten that much cheaper to allow people to run those kinds of nodes. For example, even Ethereum, people like to look at Ethereum and say, look out how huge right now the block size is. Maybe somebody could look up for me. Or maybe we can do, let's see Ethereum blockchain size. Let me see. I didn't think to pull that up right now. But it is substantially higher than that, than what we're seeing with Bitcoin right now. Right? Right? I guess it's not that bad. If this is in gigabytes, 540 million gigabytes. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Is that right? For a full node? That would be quite insane if that is the case. But anyway, not as easy to run the whole. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think it's some crazy amount there. They're about the same right now, the Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchain, but it's expected, of course, Ethereum is a little bit more vertical and it will be more difficult to store that in due order. But again, there are all sorts of upgrades coming to Ethereum that will prune away much of this and require you to not download every single little bit of every single transaction that has ever happened through pruning and other things that will slim that down. So this is an issue that will be ameliorated, at least with Ethereum. But if you do make it so that the blockchain continues to balloon for all of these things, it makes it more difficult for folks to run full nodes and therefore decentralize the network. And I don't know. I guess if we had some sort of nuclear war, we probably have enough of either nodes that at least one or two nodes would survive of each blockchain to restart the blockchain altogether. I don't think it's enough. I don't think it would be enough for just one node to survive also. I think about this sometimes. People are like, oh, if just one Bitcoin node survived with all the blockchain history, then we could restart everything. I don't think everyone would trust that to be correct, right? Like, I don't know. If Sam Bankman-Fried was the only person who had a surviving node after some sort of nuclear war, and somehow we all survived and came out of our bunkers and wanted to restart the blockchain, would we trust that individual to have the correct state of the network? Probably not. So we would probably want at least a few nodes to survive in that sort of event, which is why I think it is important to have as many full nodes as possible. It's not enough to just have one survive, right? Blockstream with your satellite in space. That's how I'm seeing it anyway. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining to me. I know some extra banter here, just getting back to the show, getting back into the swing of things, trying to just get going. I missed you guys a lot, and I hope you missed the show as well. I'm excited to be here as much as possible, sharing with you what's going on and how the space evolves, finding the opportunities, hearing them from you guys and passing them forth wherever possible. And I look forward to your comments on how I can make the show better for you, what I might have missed that was important today in the news for you. And I will finish with a quote of the day by Fulton J. Sheen. Patience is power. Patience is not an absence of action, rather it is timing. It waits on the right time to act, for the right principles and in the right way. Yeah. I mean, it's usually good to be dollar cost averaging and making that your action. History has shown, rather than trying to time the market, so maybe not the best when it came to investing or trading advice. But I thought just looking at patience overall, I really appreciated this definition as a way of looking at it for other areas of life. Anyway, take care, everyone. Much love and stay cryptic. Peace.